Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Jump right into it. Okay, much to our dismay, there will be no label dicamba in 2025. Dicamba really is effective for us, especially as a pre, but unfortunately, there will be no label this year. The generic labels say do not make dicamba pre-plant applications for soybeans in areas with average annual rainfall less than 25 inches. So that takes dicamba out of North Dakota. So we have no legal use of dicamba. So dicamba has been very helpful to us on these resistant weeds: kochia, horseweed, ragweed, palmer, water hemp, etc. So what is going to be the primary workhorse for us in soybean? Well, you know what it is. It's going to be Liberty. And in some areas of the country, we already have weeds that are resistant to Liberty. So if we overuse Liberty, what are you going to use in canola? What are you going to use in soybean? We don't want to go there. So we have to take ownership of the product and use it as wisely as possible. We can't just assume that the company's going to bring us another Liberty. It just is unlikely to happen. Okay, so how can we properly steward Liberty? Well, in canola, Liberty's the only post product that we have for kochia. Roundup doesn't work anymore mostly on kochia. Liberty's the only product we have. We do have a couple more options in soybean, but they're not the greatest, but they are options. So how can we reduce selection pressure on Liberty? Well, I went back to the 1997 weed guide to see what we had labeled back then. Well, it was Treflan, Assure 2, and Post. In the 2025 guide in green, we have, what was labeled back then. Now we have Somland, Select, Liberty, and Roundup. Well, for kochia, we know Roundup doesn't work very well. So our post-emergence, our sole option is Liberty. We know some growers are growing canola every other year. Hopefully it's not that many. And the primary trait that's being used now is Liberty. And we know that there are some growers that have Liberty and, have soybean and canola back to back. And what are they using? Liberty. So how many years do we give Liberty before we lose it? We got to be wise in how we use the product. Okay, for soybean, in 1997, we had all these products. We still have some of those same products in green. I've added the ones in red that are new, Warrant, but that doesn't help us on kochia. FlexStar is probably our post-emergence group 14 product. That is probably the best product on kochia compared to Cobra and Blazer. Then of course we have what's new from 1997, the Spartan product, Valor products, Zidua, Liberty. First Rate doesn't help us on kochia because it's group 2 resistant. And then Beyond doesn't help us much, and Baristo has Basagran in it. That might help us a little bit on small kochia. But and so over the years, we've relied really heavily on the Spartan products. But as you know, we now have started to see some group 14 resistance, even to Spartan. So what do we have that primarily works for kochia and soybean? The Spartan products, unless you've got kochia that's group 14 resistant. Metribuzin is one of the products that I think we should be using in soybean. It is very effective. Metribuzin does not control emerged kochia. It has to be in the soil. It is controlling what's germinating. Valor can help us. Zidua can help us, however, kochia emerges early. Zidua needs a lot of rainfall to activate it. The spring applications don't always work very well for kochia because of how early it germinates. The yellow products I'm referring to Treflan, Sonland, Prowl. Post, we've got Liberty, Flexstar, Ultra Blazer, Cobra, and Basagran. Flexstar, I believe, is better than Ultra Blazer, which is better than Cobra. Basagran can work as well, but the kochia's got to be 1 inch tall. Literally 1 inch. Okay, so how can we further steward Liberty? If you never spray kochia that's 6 inches tall ever again, you're doing yourself a favor. 1 to 3 inch kochia is what you should be spraying. Liberty, as you know, likes warm temps, high humidity, and sunny conditions. Medium to maybe at most coarse droplets, 15 to 20 gallons. Use AMS. Small weeds, 1 to 3 inches. Use it for the post application. Even though Liberty is labeled as a pre, I don't recommend using it because as a pre, think of the temperatures that we have in early May. Not real good conditions for Liberty for using Liberty early in the season because of the environmental conditions. Make use of Bromoxone. Bromoxone is one of our best products, and in some cases, the only product for kochia in a burn down. Be aware that some generic formulations of glufosinate are not equivalent to Liberty. Some generic formulations provide 20 to 30% less control than Liberty. Liberty contains adjuvants that some of the generic formulations do not. I think you need to consider for canola, if you're conventional tillage, consider still using Treflan or Sonland, just to have that other mode of action to take some selection pressure off of Liberty. And then, as was mentioned in the crop consultant panel this morning, have a strong weed control program the previous year. Try and control kochia as best you can in the prior year in your wheat or whatever crop is in front of your soybean. Where have we seen crop rotate or herbicides fail the most is where we are in very tight rotations, where we're using, say, a Liberty every other year or a Roundup or whatever product, using it every other year. And this is where we first saw Roundup resistance, was where we were in a tight rotation, just soybean wheat. Okay, I want you to consider some of some rotations, and then what products that you're using, what modes of action are you using in those years. What not to do. Soybean followed by canola, followed by wheat, soybean. That may be a very common rotation. But if you use Liberty twice in every one of those years, I give it maybe 7-9 years max before we start seeing Liberty fail. I encourage you to try to use a crop sequence where you use Liberty once in every 3 to 4 years. So how many effective modes of action do you have in your crop rotation? So if you're to use starring and wheat for kochia, you got a group 4, and you got Liberty a group 10. Okay, if you go wheat, soybean, canola, but you use Liberty in each of those crops as your primary kochia product, you're using solely that group 10, and I believe you're overusing it. What if you go wheat, soybean, wheat, canola, but again, you're using starring in both years and Liberty in both years? I think this is putting too much selection pressure on starring, and it's putting too much selection pressure on Liberty. How about if you switch things up to do something like this? in your wheat, use two modes of action using a product that has a starring plus remoxanil. So you've got a group 4 and a group 6. In a canola, you could use Sonland as a pre-plant and Liberty Pulse. In your wheat the next year, you could throw in, instead of just having a starring bromoxynil, have a group 27 in there. So you've got yet another mode of action. Then in your soybean, have a Spartan metribuzin down as a soil applied product, taking some selection pressure off of your post products. You could come back with a group 14, such as Flexstar, Ultra Blaze, or Basagran. And will Flexstar, Ultra Blaze, or Basagran control 4-inch kochia? No. But they will control less than 3-inch kochia. They're not the greatest. They're not 100%. But if you get them if you get the weeds when they're smaller, you can see better control. Basagran, as I mentioned earlier, 1-inch kochia. Okay, I'm going to talk about the group 14 resistance, just some updates there. So in the last couple of years, we've talked to you about group 14 resistant kochia, where we've seen resistance to AIM, Sharpen, are these post products, Reviton, Cadet, Vita, but the diphenyl ethers, we have not seen the resistance to those products. If you increase the rates, will it help control those kochia? No, it won't. We showed you that even going to a 16-ounce rate of AIM is not going to help you control that resistant kochia. We've showed you that in the trends we have seen is more resistance to Valor than we've seen with Spartan. But we've definitely seen some resistance to Spartan. We're talking the soil residual resistance. We're not talking foliar here. We're talking soil applied Valor, soil applied Spartan. Now, do I recommend that you avoid using these products, Spartan and Valor? No, I say still use them, but be prepared to use something else in case you do have resistance. Here, other products that could help you, such as a Zidua or a Fierce. Now, Fierce is just Valor and Zidua together. Here we showed Valor, two populations. Valor was not controlling these two populations. They were being controlled in our susceptible check here and our susceptible check here. Zidua was providing some suppression. Fierce, which is Valor and Zidua together, was providing a little bit more control. I mentioned that the diphenyl ethers, Ultra Blazer, Flexstar, Cobra, appear to still control this group 14 resistant kochia. So if you're in soybeans and you want to use something besides Liberty, these three diphenyl ethers are still decent options if you hit the kochia when they're smaller. I definitely recommend that you have your kochia tested for group 14 resistance. All you have to do is put some kochia leaves in an envelope, not the entire plant, just say 3 leaves, put it in an envelope and send it to the National Genotyping Center in Fargo. And within a week or two, they can tell you if your kochia has group 14 resistance or not. This is extremely valuable information. Highly encourage you to do it. Okay. Something else we've been looking at, since we know Zidua, and when I say Zidua, we're referring to pyroxasulfone. Zidua is also in Anthem Flex. Anthem Flex is Zidua plus AIM. We know that Zidua is very non-water soluble. It needs a lot of rain to get activated. And so in the spring, we've had a tough time, especially I'm talking more in the West. In the east, you get more rain. Maybe you get it activated more than we do in the west. But we have found that as a fall application, we've had some luck controlling kochia and foxtail, but unfortunately, it takes higher rates. And so it's not cheap. But it took us about 4 ounces of Anthem Flex to get about 70% control in June of kochia. Green foxtail about the same, so about 4 ounces. We got about 70% suppression on kochia and about the same on green foxtail. To get higher amount of kochia control, 6 ounces, we got in the 90s, close to 90 there. But you know, we're talking a lot of dollars. But if you're desperate, you want some suppression from another product, this could be helpful. Okay, a new product that will be available in this coming year, which will help us, is a product from Corteva called Tolvera. It is tolpyrrolate plus bromoxynil, a group 27 and group 6. What's different about this product is, so that you know, think of our Husky and Talinor. Now those are also group 27s and a group 6, but those products do not have grass activity. Tolpyrrolate, this group 27, has broadleaf and grass activity. It's primarily foxtail and barnyard grass. Unfortunately, it will not control wild oat, but it is a different mode of action. The green foxtail problems we're having with group 1 and group 2, this will control the group 1 and group 2 resistant foxtail. It can be tank mixed with other products to broaden the spectrum. Now for kochia, it will control kochia. In our trial, it has been competitive with some of the better products like Husky FX. In my experience, it's been within about 5 to 7% of Husky FX. But I stress the size of the kochia makes a difference. You get 2-inch kochia, you get 99% control. 1 to 4 inches, it's down to 91, 92. But you spray big kochia, you don't control it near as well. Saw the same trend with green foxtail. With smaller kochia, we get above 90% smaller green foxtail. We get over 90% control. You spray larger foxtail, you get lower control. One of the other benefits of this product is the crop rotation. With Husky, now this will be maybe a bigger impact further west where we grow lentils, but with Talinor and Husky, there are more crop rotation restrictions. With Tolvera, we in 9 months we can rotate to crops like chickpea, dry pea, lentil, etc. All these crops right here are 9 months. Sugar beet is 18, potatoes 9 or 15, depending on rainfall. But so further west, where we're growing these pulse crops, lentils, peas, dry peas, chickpeas, the 9-month rotation restriction will be a big benefit. Another product that we hope will get a label because it will help us with kochia is the active ingredient is dichlorprop. Dichlorprop is just like 2,4-D, except it has this methyl group right here. You don't see it there in 2,4-D, but it is right there. So dichlorprop, this product will be known as Maestro EXT. It is a combination of dichlorprop and bromoxynil. And where we have, I have evaluated this for several years, and I show the kochia size here. You can look at the numbers. Where the kochia is 3 inches or less, we see very effective control of kochia. 3 inches, we see 93 to 97% control of kochia. But where we're spraying bigger kochia, say 6-inch kochia, we're definitely losing control. We see that this product has been very safe on wheat. And it will be from New Farm. Hopefully it will have a label in the next couple of months. Again, it will be known as Maestro EXT. Okay, how am I doing on time? 5 minutes, okay. All right, so this is a study conducted by Joe Eichley in Fargo. This is for water hemp control. The blue bars is 6 weeks after planting, and the orange bars 8 weeks after planting. So these are soil applied herbicides, Zidua dual outlook warrant, to see what kind of residual control you get when we compare these group 15 herbicides. These are group 15s. And for water hemp, he saw better longer term control with Zidua and warrant than he did with dual and outlook. Now, I repeated this same study in Minot, but I don't have water hemp, but I do have green foxtail. And I saw kind of the opposite results. I saw better control of green foxtail with dual and outlook than I did with Zidua and warrant. Warrant needs a lot of rain to activate it because of that microencapsulation. We know Zidua needs a lot of water to get activated. We did get rain this year, and so we did get decent control, but the dual and outlook, we did see better longer term control on foxtail as opposed to Fargo, Joe, where they saw better water hemp control with warrant and Zidua. I'm going to skip the pictures. Maybe one last slide here. Because we rely on Gramoxone now a lot for kochia control, we know that Gramoxone isn't effective on every weed. And so I wondered, are there any tank mixes that we could, what tank mix partners could we throw in with Gramoxone to help us on some weeds? And what I wanted to learn was, would Gramoxone, because of its fast acting activity, would it antagonize any other product that we throw with it? And so what I have here is Gramoxone by itself with common lamb's quarters, kochia, green foxtail, shepherd's purse, canola. So here's Gramoxone by itself. So Gramoxone by itself on this date, 70% control. So with Sharpen, we saw a little bit of increase. With Metribuzin, 99%, Affinity Broad Spec 90, a little bit of a bump with Dicamba 2,4-D above Gramoxone. Where I left out the numbers here, they're no different than Gramoxone by itself. So all these treatments here were all similar to Gramoxone by itself. With Metribuzin, we saw a little bit of bump with green foxtail control and shepherd's purse and canola. So Metribuzin, we know there is some synergism with Gramoxone. With Affinity, we saw a little bit of a help on the mustard species, as well as 2,4-D. So, one of the reasons why I was interested in this is because we know Gramoxone can be a little bit weaker on lamb's quarters. And so I wanted to see if we could have a tank mix partner that could help us with lamb's quarters, and we could see that. Okay, I know they're maybe not in this area, but I think up in Langdon, maybe further east, there and there are some dry peas grown, and there are some dry beans in the area, but as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but are most dry beans conventional tillage for the most part out here? Okay, so this new express label would be more for no-till. And I show that there is a new label for use in dry beans. I show black beans, navy beans, dry beans, pintos, fabas, as well as peas, lentils, and chickpeas. And what this is we can now spray express in a no-till situation as a burn down in front of these crops. And it will help us with, some weeds like mustard, prickly lettuce, hawksbeard, chamomile, etc. We've seen essentially no injury to crops like, dried pea and chickpea. I think we have to be careful with lentil. Having a seeding depth of 1.5 to 2 inches certainly reduces that risk. Now, the label indicates pre-plant only, so 1 day pre-plant. This may be useful for some people. Okay, I'm going to stop there because we're out of time. Any questions? Question was, when can you use this express in front of these crops? It's at least 1 day prior to planting, is what the label says. Question is, can you apply Gramoxone by itself or in the tank mix? It can be with tank mix partners. For example, like the Spartan, I think most Spartan products say that you can't tank mix with Gramoxone, and so I don't see an issue there with tank mixing Gramoxone with other products. At least as far as antagonizing the Gramoxone. Okay, the question was, what's the rate of Gramoxone that we should be using in a burn down, and what adjuvant should we be using with it, either alone or in a tank mix? Okay, the rate of Gramoxone will depend on the crop in the burn down, because the label does vary, but generally, for most of the crops that we're growing here, now I'm going to talk the 3 pound formulation. 1.67 pints is usually about where is. That isn't every crop, but most of them do say 1.67 pints of Gramoxone. When it's applied by itself, the label says, and I've had a company rep tell me that NIS is the preferred adjuvant. Now, the label also does say when it's in a tank mix, you can throw in seal and oil with it. Question is, have I ever seen the oil result in antagonism or a decrease in control? No, I have not. Question is, fall applied residua for wild oat. I think it can work. I think it's better than a spring application, because the spring application, think of wild oat is emerging really early, and there isn't time to get that residua in the spring activated. And so we see really inconsistent, generally poor results in the spring. But in the fall, we have seen much more consistent results. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. So in the new weed guide, on the second to last page, our weed of the year is wild oat. And on the second to last page is that whole page is on wild oat. And there is toward the end of the last couple paragraphs, we do show that 3.25 ounces gives us, in the fall, gives us generally fair, sometimes excellent results. 4 ounces gives us more consistent results. No, that's not cheap, but 3.25 ounces seems like it needs to be the minimum that you use for wild oat in the fall. I have not. Now, Kirk Howlett, I think, may have gone higher than 4. I'm pretty sure he had, but I think he may have gone up to 6. So, based on his data, 4 looks a lot better than 3 1/4. So I would go minimum 4. Question was, at 6 ounces, are we going to start seeing injury on the wheat? I think it's possible. He was also doing some work with variety response to Zidua. I have not seen that data, but that's something that I'll ask him to present, I don't know if you go to Wide World of Weeds. Or if I can get your name and number after, I will ask him to present that information at Wide World of Weeds, in a couple of weeks. Okay, thank you.